And the sampling method is a way to find out what the opinions are of a large group of people by just surveying a small amount of people. And so the sampling method can be useful if it's conducted in the right way. But if it's not conducted in the right way, it can result in skewed data. And so there's a couple of practices that result in skewed data. One practice is not picking people at random. So if the surveyor handpicks the people to talk to, then it's not at random, and so it's not going to give a good indication of the population as a whole. Second problem is when it poorly represents the larger population. And so this happens when only one group of the larger group is interviewed. Like, say, for example, that you're interviewing everyone in the United States of America. Well, what could happen is that you only interview people in Nebraska. And so you may pick people at random within the state of Nebraska, but you're leaving out the other 49 states. And so it's poorly representing the larger population because you're not getting people from all different areas of the U.S. Now, in order for the data to be representative of the population as a whole, it has to be picked at random. The people surveyed have to be picked at random, and it has to represent the population as a whole. So it has to do essentially the opposite of what we listed earlier. So I'm going to give you a couple scenarios of the sampling method, and we're going to decide whether this is a good way to go about it or not. So a town wants to gather opinions of residents. So it interviews a random group of residents from each street in town. So this is a great way to go about it because remember it has to be at random. So it says that right there. It's a random group of residents, and it's from each street in town. Because what would happen here is if you just interview a random group of residents from the city, you might leave out people from certain sections of the city. But by making sure it's random, but also making sure you get people from each street in town, you're getting a better idea of the opinions of the town as a whole. Now the second scenario is a clothing store that has a target population of people ages 15 to 35. And so it wants to get an idea of the opinions of its customers, and so it interviews or surveys customers that are 15 and 16 years old. And so they may have just picked these 15 and 16-year-old customers at random, so they may have gotten the random part right. But the problem is they left out all the people 17 to 35 that are also part of the target population. So they did not represent the population as a whole because they didn't get people from other age groups. They just limited it to kids 15 and 16 years old. So this is an example of skewed data. In other words, the surveyors that use the sampling method to get opinions of the customers at the store are going to come up with skewed data because they did not go about their surveying in the correct manner.